The valve exercising is not a very complicated process. Really, in essence, all we're really doing is we are closing a valve that's typically open, which is flowing water to homes and businesses. We're going to close that valve and then we're going to reopen it, and some people call it cycling the valve, and all we're doing at that point is to make sure the valve is functional and that it will shut off in the need of a maintenance issue or an emergency. One of the biggest areas of cost saving is by exercising valves, it prevents a valve from failing. The valve itself is not tremendously expensive. The real cost is to get the valve out of the ground, because obviously water valves are all buried. So if a valve fails, now we're talking about jackhammering up a street, backhoe, inconvenience to citizens, the traffic flow. So that's where the real cost comes in, and that can be in the thousands of dollars. The American Water Works Association is kind of the governing authority in the water industry, and they recommend that valves be exercised once per year. In very critical valves, that should probably be increased, but at least once per year is a good rule of thumb. I think probably the biggest struggle that a lot of water utilities have is they think that they need some type of formal program. It can begin very, very simply with just a manual valve wrench. They'll probably find very quickly that having a machine to help do the job is certainly a good cost-effective proposal at that point. But any type of valve exercising is good. Just like exercising people. If you go out and you walk a half mile, that's a half mile better than not walking at all. So any improvements in your system through valve exercising will pay off benefits. As valve sizes increase, so do the number of turns on a valve wrench to be able to operate the valve. For instance, on a smaller valve, an 8-inch valve, it probably takes about 26 to 28 turns of a valve wrench. Now you compare that to a 36-inch valve that may take over 500 turns, then time becomes a very, very big issue. If it's being done manually, one man would get winded very quickly, especially on a hot day or if the weather is very extreme. Having a machine to be able to operate the valve, exercise a valve, will reduce his time and his exposure, and it certainly can save quite a bit of money. Every time a water utility has techs in the field doing maintenance, doing work, they have an opportunity to exercise valves, because there's always downtime. They're waiting for a backhoe, they're waiting for parts or whatever. By having their valve exercising program in mind, the adjacent valves to where they're working could be exercised. And if a utility only does one valve per day, in the course of a year, 250 valves would be done. I think it's good also to reward the water techs out in the field to be proactive. Give them a little incentive, a gift card or whatever, so that then they'll be looking for valves to exercise. They'll be helping the water utility by being on the constant lookout for valves that can be exercised.